From glory to disgrace, that's how one critic described Dustin Hoffman's journey after shocking accusations emerged in 2017. Now at 87, the two-time Oscar winner is barely recognizable on New York streets, hidden behind dark glasses and casual clothes. But while the world focuses on his physical transformation, the real story is darker. How one of cinema's greatest actors lost his reputation, his power, and the respect of an industry he once ruled. Dustin Hoffman was born on August 8, 1937, in Los Angeles, California. His family wasn't rich or connected to Hollywood glamour. His father, Harry Hoffman, used to work at Columbia Pictures as a prop supervisor, but lost his job during the Great Depression. After that, he sold furniture to make ends meet. Dustin's mother, Lillian, loved the idea of show business, but never got the chance to follow that dream. From a young age, Dustin's life was full of challenges. He couldn't talk until he was 3, which worried his parents. Even physically, he was slower to develop than most kids. His family moved a lot, and they didn't have much money. This made Dustin feel like he didn't fit in anywhere. He was small for his age, had braces, and battled terrible acne as a teenager. He didn't do well in school either, which made him feel even more out of place, especially because his older brother, Ron, was so successful in academics. To deal with all this, Dustin turned to humor. He made jokes to get attention and approval from others, even if it meant making fun of his teachers. His parents wanted him to have a talent, so they decided he should become a concert pianist. Back then, this was a big deal for Jewish families, and Dustin later joked that being a pianist was like the ultimate dream for his parents. But music didn't excite him. After high school, Dustin went to Santa Monica City College to study music, but he didn't do well there either. His grades were terrible, and he dropped out after just 1 year. By chance, he signed up for an acting class because someone told him, "You can't fail acting." That random decision would change everything. In 1958, when he was 21, Dustin left Los Angeles and moved to New York City to become an actor. He had only $50 in his pocket and no real plan. He rented a cheap apartment with other struggling actors, including Gene Hackman and Robert Duvall, who would also later become famous. Life in New York was tough. Dustin worked all kinds of odd jobs to survive. He was a waiter, a toy demonstrator at Macy's, a typist, and even worked at a psychiatric institute. He once got fired from a waiter job because he spent too much time listening to the music at the club where he worked. Dustin never gave up on acting. He trained at acting schools, taught kids in Harlem, and even directed small theater plays. He auditioned for the prestigious Actors Studio 5 times before finally being accepted. But even with all this effort, he faced constant rejection. His first stage role in New York was unpaid. He barely had enough money to survive, and even had to rely on unemployment benefits to get by. Still, he refused to quit. His big break finally came in 1967, when he was cast in The Graduate. Dustin was 29 years old and still a struggling actor. The role of Benjamin Braddock was meant for a tall, handsome actor like Robert Redford. Dustin, with his short height and unconventional looks, didn't seem like the right choice. In fact, he thought he was so wrong for the role that he tried to mess up his audition on purpose. But the director, Mike Nichols, saw something special in Dustin. Nichols told him he's Jewish on the inside and believed he was perfect for the part. Filming The Graduate wasn't easy. Dustin, at 29, had to play a 21-year-old, and his co-star, Anne Bancroft, who played Mrs. Robinson, was only 6 years older than him. Some people doubted Dustin at first. One co-star even said he seemed tiny during their scenes together. But when the movie came out, it was a massive success. Audiences loved Dustin's portrayal of the awkward and confused Benjamin Braddock. The movie made over $100 million and became the highest-grossing film of 1967. Dustin earned an Oscar nomination, and his career finally took off. Even though he only got paid $20,000 for the role, it changed his life forever. Dustin's success in The Graduate changed how Hollywood saw leading men. Before him, stars were usually tall, handsome, and fit the classic heartthrob image. Dustin didn't look like that, but audiences loved his emotional depth and relatable character. Dustin Hoffman's acting career is full of hard work, incredible skill, and big risks. He won his first Oscar on April 14, 1980, for Kramer vs. Kramer. In the movie, he played Ted Kramer, a father learning how to take care of his son after a divorce. The filming was intense and lasted 79 days. Hoffman wanted the character to feel real, so he asked for changes to the script. He even smashed a wine glass during filming to make his young co-star, Justin Henry, cry for an emotional scene. His performance was raw and emotional, showing Ted's journey from a busy worker to a caring father. Hoffman won his second Oscar on March 29, 1989, for Rain Man. He played Raymond Babbitt, an autistic savant, with incredible detail. Hoffman spent hundreds of hours learning about autism. He visited hospitals, talked to families, and studied a man named Kim Peek, who inspired the character. Hoffman memorized parts of the phone book and stayed in character even after filming ended, wearing Raymond's clothes for 12 weeks. His dedication helped the movie raise awareness about autism, with more people learning about the condition because of the film. Hoffman's ability to play very different roles is amazing. In Midnight Cowboy, he played Ratso Rizzo, a sick and struggling con man. To act the part, he put rocks in his shoes to limp and lost weight by eating only crackers and cottage cheese. He also lived on the streets for weeks to feel what his character went through. The famous line, "I'm walking here," was something he shouted when a real taxi almost hit him during filming. It made the scene unforgettable. In Tootsie, Hoffman went the opposite direction. He played Dorothy Michael, a woman, and spent hours every day in makeup to look believable. He practiced speaking in a softer voice, and even went to his daughter's school dressed as Dorothy to see if people believed it. They did. Playing Dorothy changed Hoffman's view of women. He said later, it made him realize how unfair beauty standards were and how he had judged women in the past. Hoffman worked with some of the best directors and actors. In The Graduate, Mike Nichols pushed him hard, making him film the same scene over and over. For Marathon Man, Hoffman worked with Laurence Olivier, who didn't agree with his intense method acting. When Hoffman stayed awake for days to look tired, Olivier told him, "Why don't you just try acting?" Even with their differences, they created amazing scenes together. Hoffman's method acting is legendary. For Papillon, he lost a lot of weight and wore real chains that left scars. During Marathon Man, he stayed awake for so long he started seeing things that weren't real, and filming had to stop. For Rain Man, he learned to count cards so well that casinos banned him during filming. But this dedication wasn't easy. Hoffman struggled with anxiety and had trouble sleeping. After playing Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman, he checked into a hospital because the sadness of the role stayed with him. Even with these challenges, Hoffman believed his method was worth it. He once said, "If you're not willing to risk your sanity for a role, you're not an actor. You're just a guy who stands in front of a camera." In the 1990s and 2000s, Dustin Hoffman's career changed. He went from being a leading man to taking on unique and character-driven roles. On December 11, 1991, he played Captain Hook in Steven Spielberg's Hook. This role was very different from anything he had done before. The movie made $300 million worldwide, but some critics didn't like it. Even so, people loved Hoffman's performance because he made Captain Hook both scary and entertaining. This marked the start of a new phase in his career. In 1997, Hoffman starred in Wag the Dog, a political comedy that seemed almost too real. It came out on December 25th, just weeks before the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke in real life. Hoffman played Stanley Motz, a Hollywood producer who fakes a war to distract from a presidential scandal. His performance was so good, it earned him his 7th Oscar nomination. The movie cost $15 million to make, but earned $64.3 million, proving Hoffman was still a big draw for audiences. The following year, on March 6, 1998, Hoffman appeared in Sphere, a science fiction movie with Sharon Stone and Samuel L. Jackson. The film didn't do well at the box office, making only $73 million compared to its $100 million budget. Despite this, Hoffman's role as Dr. Norman Goodman, a psychologist, showed how willing he was to try new genres and bring depth to unusual stories. In 2004, Hoffman took a lighter turn with the comedy Meet the Fockers, which came out on December 22nd. He played Bernie Focker, the fun and eccentric father of Ben Stiller's character. The movie was a massive hit, earning $516.6 million worldwide. It introduced Hoffman to a younger audience and showed off his comedic side. The sequel, Little Fockers, came out on December 22, 2010, and even though critics didn't love it, it still made $310 million globally. At age 75, Hoffman tried something new. He directed a movie called Quartet about retired opera singers. It premiered at the Toronto Film Festival on September 9, 2012, and was released in theaters on January 11, 2013. The movie had a talented cast, including Maggie Smith, Billy Connolly, and Tom Courtenay. Hoffman wanted the film to feel real, so he used retired musicians as extras. The movie's classical soundtrack even hit #1 on the UK charts. Critics praised Hoffman for his thoughtful direction, and the movie made $60.3 million on an $11 million budget. In 2008, Hoffman surprised everyone by doing voice acting. He played Master Shufu, a wise but grumpy martial arts teacher in Kung Fu Panda. The movie was a huge success, making $631.7 million worldwide and earning an Oscar nomination. Hoffman said voice acting was hard for him, but he stuck with it. He returned for the sequels in 2011 and 2016, and each movie made over $500 million. The Kung Fu Panda series became a massive hit, and Hoffman's voice work was loved by fans of all ages. More recently, Hoffman has taken on smaller but meaningful roles. In 2017, he starred in the Meyerowitz Stories with Adam Sandler and Ben Stiller. The movie, which was released on Netflix, focused on family relationships. Hoffman played Harold Meyerowitz, a retired artist struggling with his legacy. Critics said this was one of Hoffman's best performances in years. In 2018, he appeared in a crime drama called Into the Labyrinth, where he played a profiler solving a kidnapping case. In 2023, Hoffman starred in Sam and Kate with his son, Jake Hoffman. The movie was about a father dealing with health problems and his relationship with his son. This role let Hoffman explore real-life father-son dynamics on screen. Behind the scenes, the filming of Kramer vs. Kramer in 1979 was filled with shocking tensions between Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep. Right on the first day of shooting, Hoffman slapped Streep across the face without warning before their first scene. He was 42, and she was 29. Hoffman, going through his own messy divorce, took out his frustrations on her during filming. In one very disturbing moment, he whispered the name of Streep's recently deceased fiancé, John Cazale, right before an emotional courtroom scene. He wanted to provoke real emotions. He even threw a wine glass near her head in another scene without telling her. Glass shattered, and some landed in her hair. Streep confronted him, calmly saying, "Next time you do that, I'd appreciate you letting me know." Hoffman's behavior didn't stop there. He improvised lines to surprise Streep, sometimes making crude remarks about her body. At their first meeting, he touched her breast and joked, "I'm Dustin, Burp Hoffman," being deliberately obnoxious. Despite all this, Streep remained professional, delivering a performance that won her an Oscar. Years later, in 2018, she called Hoffman's actions overstepping and said they were not acceptable for any workplace, including a movie set. During Tootsie in 1982, Hoffman clashed constantly with director Sidney Pollack. The 7-month shoot was full of heated arguments. Hoffman had spent years developing the project and had unusual control over the film, which created constant power struggles with Pollack. Hoffman and the screenwriter often rewrote scenes on weekends, causing delays when new script pages were presented on Mondays. These changes disrupted the schedule and led to intense on-set confrontations. Pollack found an odd solution to the problem. He noticed Hoffman was easier to work with when he was dressed as his character, Dorothy Michaels. Pollack started waiting until Hoffman was in full costume and makeup before discussing changes. Somehow, Dorothy was more cooperative than Hoffman himself. This workaround kept the production moving, but the personal tension between Hoffman and Pollack lasted until filming ended. Pollack later joked that he would trade his Oscar to get back the 9 months he spent working with Hoffman. Despite all the chaos, Tootsie became a huge success, earning 10 Oscar nominations. Hoffman's reputation for being demanding has followed him throughout his career. His perfectionism is legendary, but it has caused problems on many sets. During Marathon Man in 1976, Hoffman stayed awake for 3 days straight to make his character's exhaustion feel real. His co-star, Laurence Olivier, famously told him, "My dear boy, why don't you just try acting?" Hoffman's obsession with detail extended to everything, not just his acting. On Tootsie, he insisted on 150 screen tests over 2 years to perfect his character's look. He often pushed for countless retakes, frustrating directors and actors. On Kramer versus Kramer, he rewrote parts of the script and demanded long, grueling workdays to get things exactly how he wanted. In Death of a Salesman in 1980s. 4. His co-star John Malkovich called him impossible to work with. Hoffman constantly needed validation and took over rehearsals, leaving little room for others. But many people admit that his demanding nature often leads to extraordinary performances. In late 2017, serious accusations of sexual misconduct against Dustin Hoffman came to light, shocking Hollywood. It started on November 1, 2017, when writer Anna Graham Hunter published a column in The Hollywood Reporter. She said Hoffman had sexually harassed her when she was a 17-year-old production intern on the set of Death of a Salesman in 1985. This first accusation opened the door for more stories, and soon 7 other women came forward with similar allegations spanning decades. The accusations varied from inappropriate comments to serious claims of sexual assault. Melissa Kester, a recent college graduate at the time, alleged that Hoffman assaulted her while recording audio for the 1987 film Ishtar. Another woman, identified only as Carolyn, claimed Hoffman assaulted her in a recording studio during the same time. Corey Thomas, who was just 16 and a friend of Hoffman's daughter, said he exposed himself to her in a hotel room. Other women shared stories of misconduct going back even further. Actress Catherine Rosetta accused Hoffman of repeatedly groping her during the 1983 Broadway revival of Death of a Salesman and its TV movie adaptation. A woman using the pseudonym Pauline alleged that Hoffman exposed and touched himself in front of her in 1973 when she was only 15 years old. Together, these stories painted a disturbing picture of Hoffman's behavior spanning nearly 5 decades. The volume and consistency of these claims were staggering. Hoffman, Known as one of the most respected actors in Hollywood and a two-time Oscar winner, suddenly became one of the most prominent figures implicated in the #MeToo movement. The revelation significantly changed how people viewed his career and legacy. When the allegations first surfaced, Hoffman's response was a mix of apology and denial, which left many confused. After Anna Graham Hunter's story came out, Hoffman quickly released a statement saying, "I have the utmost respect for women and feel terrible that anything I might have done could have put her in an uncomfortable situation. I am sorry. It is not reflective of who I am." As more accusations came out, Hoffman became more defensive. During a public panel on December 4, 2017, for the 20th anniversary of Wag the Dog, moderator John Oliver confronted him directly about the allegations. The conversation quickly turned heated. Hoffman argued that his behavior on the set of Death of a Salesman was just part of the culture at the time, saying, "It's 40 years ago. I don't know the context. The context I need is actually the people, not the things written." This attempt to explain his actions as a product of the times angered many who saw it as minimizing the seriousness of the accusations. Hoffman also claimed that adult jokes and comments were normal on film sets in the 1980s. Critics heavily criticized this defense, calling it an excuse rather than an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. As more women spoke out, Hoffman's responses grew quieter. His lawyer issued statements denying some of the serious claims, calling them defamatory falsehoods. However, Hoffman himself avoided the public eye, canceling appearances and staying away from interviews. For many, Hoffman's legacy was forever altered by these revelations. Dustin Hoffman's personal life has two big stories about marriage. His first marriage was with Ann Byrne in 1969, just as he became a big star after The Graduate. They were together for 11 years. Dustin adopted Ann's daughter Karina, and they had a daughter Jenna in 1970. But their marriage was not easy. Dustin was very focused on his career, and the stress of fame made things worse. Later, Dustin admitted he was unfaithful during this time. Their divorce in 1980 was difficult, and Ann got a settlement of $4.5 million, which was a lot of money back then. His second marriage was completely different. In 1980, Dustin married Lisa Gottsagen, and they have been together for more than 40 years. Lisa first met Dustin when she was only 10 years old. She told her grandmother, "I want to marry him someday." 12 years later, they met again and got married quickly. Together, they had 4 kids: Jake, Rebecca, Ben, and Alexandra. On their first date, they talked about having kids. Lisa wanted 6, but Dustin, already a father of 2, said 4 was enough. And that's exactly what happened. Their marriage has lasted because they share the same values and focus on family. Lisa once said, "The whole point of being married was to be together as a family." Being a father changed Dustin in many ways, even in his work. When he made Kramer versus Kramer in 1979, the story about a father fighting for his son was very close to what he was going through during his divorce. Dustin later said that playing this role helped him become a better father in real life. He realized how important it was to be present for his kids. This connection between his work and his personal life happened again with Rain Man in 1988. Dustin played an autistic savant in the movie and spent time with autistic families to prepare. This made him more thoughtful about how he raised his own kids. Interestingly, his son Jake, just 7 years old, appeared briefly in the film, which may have inspired Jake to become an actor later. Dustin cared so much about his family that he turned down big roles to be with them. In 1984, he refused the lead role in Ghostbusters because it would have taken him away from his kids for too long. Even though it cost him a huge opportunity, he didn't regret putting his family first. Dustin also cared a lot about political issues. In the 1960s, he spoke out against the Vietnam War and joined protests, even though it could have hurt his career. His work often reflected his views. In All the President's Men, 1976, he played a journalist uncovering the Watergate scandal, which showed the importance of speaking truth to power. In the late 1980s, he became very involved in environmental causes. He narrated Race to Save the Planet, one of the first big documentaries about climate change. Over the years, he supported many campaigns to protect the planet, like fighting deforestation and ocean pollution. Dustin's activism sometimes caused trouble. In 2003, he criticized the Iraq War, which upset some people in Hollywood. But Dustin stood firm, saying, "If you see something wrong, you have to speak up." He also supported LGBTQ rights and spoke against racism. Even at 80 years old, he joined the Women's March in 2017 with his granddaughter, showing he still cared about fighting for justice. In 2013, Dustin faced a very personal battle. He was diagnosed with cancer, though he kept it private at first. He had surgery at one of the best hospitals in New York and went through tough radiation and chemotherapy treatments. Even though it was hard, Dustin stayed determined. He insisted on driving himself to his appointments to feel normal and independent. He later admitted he was scared, but used that fear to push himself to recover. In the end, he beat cancer, showing the same strength he always had in his life. Dustin Hoffman, the famous actor loved for movies like The Graduate and Rain Man, has been seen in public only a few times recently. On September 18, 2024, at the age of 87, he was spotted walking in New York City. People barely recognized him. He looked very different from his old self. His clean, polished look was gone. Instead, he had scruffy white stubble, wore a black hat, and hid behind sunglasses. Fans and photographers were surprised by how much he had changed and wondered what his life was like now. Hoffman's new look wasn't just about his face. His whole style seemed different. On October 1, 2024, he was seen having lunch with his wife, Lisa, at a place called Il Bucco in New York City. He wasn't in the classy way people remember from red carpet events. Instead, he wore sweatpants, a hoodie, and a baseball cap. His gray hair was longer than usual, making him look even more different. Many fans felt it was hard to believe this casual man was the same actor they admired for years. These sightings started conversations about how even the biggest stars change with age. Many media outlets called Hoffman unrecognizable, showing how much time can transform even the most familiar faces. But even with all the changes, Hoffman still has a presence that grabs attention. On March 3, 2024, he made a rare appearance at the premiere of Kung Fu Panda 4. He voices the Master Shufu in the movie. This time, he brought two of his grandchildren along, showing a sweet and family-focused side of himself that fans rarely see. Even at 87, Hoffman hasn't stopped working. In fact, he is still taking on exciting projects. One of the biggest is Megalopolis, a science fiction movie directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It comes out on May 17, 2024. Hoffman stars with big names like Adam Driver and Natalie Emmanuel. The story is about rebuilding New York City after a huge disaster. This is one of Hoffman's first major blockbuster films in years, and fans are excited to see him in it. There have been rumors that Hoffman might retire, but he keeps proving them wrong. He is set to star in a crime thriller called Tuner, directed by Daniel Rohrer, and another movie called Luca Mortis, which is already finished.